In 2010, a Nobel Prize winner announced the number everyone still quotes at dinner parties. Past about 75,000 US dollars, money stops buying happiness. In 2021, a younger scientist with a smartphone app and 1 million data points said, "No, it doesn't. It keeps buying happiness all the way up." 2 published studies. Opposite answers. So the 2 men did something scientists almost never do. They joined forces, reran everything together, and found out who was wrong. The answer surprised both of them. And it changes what that dinner party number means for your paycheck. My name is Nathan, and in this video I'll tell you the whole story, then translate the final answer into today's Canadian dollars, so you'll know where the real line sits, who it applies to, and why. For one group of Canadians, the line genuinely doesn't exist. Act 1, 2010. Daniel Kahneman, the psychologist who won the Nobel for Economics without ever training as an economist, publishes a paper with Angus Deaton in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences. They had a mountain of Gallup survey data, over 450,000 responses from Americans, and they asked 2 different happiness questions because they had already figured out those 2 questions measure 2 different things. Question 1 asks about your life in general, a Cantrell ladder from worst possible life to best possible life, taking the wide view. That is life evaluation. Question 2 asks how you felt yesterday. Happy, sad, worried, enjoying. The mood you are in through the actual hours of an ordinary day. That is emotional well-being. Kahneman and Deaton found something clean. Life evaluation kept climbing, with income all the way up their sample. Higher earners really did rate their overall lives higher. But emotional well-being, the day-to-day mood, climbed with income only up to about 75,000 US dollars a year, and then it flattened. Above 75,000 US dollars. Extra money did not seem to buy you any additional day-to-day happiness. It made intuitive sense. Below 75,000 US dollars, money solves real daily problems. The broken car, the overdue bill, the late night worry. Above it, those problems are already solved, and more money just buys nicer versions of things that don't move your mood. The finding traveled everywhere. Every personal finance blog reprinted it. Every dinner party invoked it. 75,000 US dollars became the number that let people feel fine about not chasing another promotion. And the story sat quietly for a decade. Act 2, 2021. A younger researcher at the University of Pennsylvania named Matthew Killingsworth publishes his own paper in PNAS using a completely different method. Instead of asking people once, in a survey, how happy they had been in general, Killingsworth built a smartphone app called Track Your Happiness that pinged users at random moments through the day and asked how they felt right now. Millions of moments. Over 1 million data points from more than 30,000 people. Real-time mood, not a memory of mood. His finding contradicted Kahneman and Deaton head-on. In Killingsworth's data, there was no plateau. Emotional well-being kept rising, with income past 80,000 US dollars, past 100,000 US dollars, past 200,000 US dollars, all the way up his sample. Every step up the income scale bought a small, real, additional bump in day-to-day mood. Money kept buying happiness. Full stop. Now you have a serious scientific problem. One famous paper says there's a ceiling. Another famous paper, done well, says there isn't. The usual academic move is to lob rebuttal papers at each other from opposite trenches for 10 years and call it a field. Act 3, 2023. The 2 men do something almost unheard of. Killingsworth and Kahneman, joined by the University of Pennsylvania statistician Barbara Mellers as a neutral arbiter, sit down together and run what psychologists call an adversarial collaboration. Before touching data, both sides agree on the analysis plan, agree on what would confirm or overturn each of their positions, and pool the underlying data sets. Then they run the analysis together and publish whatever comes out. If you're wrong in print, with your own name on it. The results, published in PNAS in March 2023, surprised both of them. Both sides had been partly right, and both sides had been partly wrong, and the truth was hiding in a subgroup nobody had looked at properly. Here is the reconciled finding. stated cleanly. For most people, the roughly 80% of the sample who are, in general, reasonably happy, Killingsworth was right. Happiness keeps climbing with income well past $100,000 with no visible plateau in the range they could measure. But for the unhappiest slice of the sample, roughly the bottom 20% by baseline emotional well-being, Kahneman was right. For that group, the lift from more money flattens at roughly the old $75,000 area. And additional income does very little for their day-to-day mood after that. In plain words, more money keeps making the already content a bit happier. More money stops rescuing the already unhappy once their material floor is fixed. And there is a third piece to the resolution which matters more than either of the first two. The relationship between income and happiness is logarithmic, not linear. Meaning, it is not the extra $10,000 that buys the bump. It is the doubling. A raise from $30,000 to $60,000 buys about the same emotional gain as a raise from $60,000 to $120,000, which buys about the same emotional gain as a raise from $120,000 to $240,000. Each doubling delivers a similar size step. That is why the plateau looked real for so long. You were watching a $10,000 raise stop feeling life-changing at higher incomes. But that was not a ceiling. That was arithmetic. To keep feeling the same bump you needed to double, and almost nobody keeps doubling. That doubling rule is worth staying on for one more beat, because it quietly explains why raises above about 100,000 Canadian dollars so often feel disappointing even to people who genuinely appreciate them. The raise is real, the bank account grows, but the emotional dial is calibrated in doublings, and a 10% or 15% raise on a $150,000 salary is not close to it is roughly a seventh of the emotional step you got the last time your salary doubled, which was probably in your 20s when you went from a starter job to a proper one. The bigger the salary you are already earning, the more you have to add in absolute dollars to feel the same lift. That is not a bug in your brain. That is the shape of the curve every large happiness dataset has recovered. The other thing the 2023 paper made unambiguous is that both measures, the day-to-day mood and the overall life evaluation, behave broadly the same way. Kahneman and Deaton had originally reported that the wide view life evaluation measure kept climbing even where the day-to-day mood measure appeared to flatten. Killingsworth's data, with better resolution at the top of the income distribution and repeated measurements per person, showed both measures continuing to climb for the majority group. So the popular version of the 2010 story that life satisfaction keeps going up, but daily happiness plateaus, turns out to be an over-tidy summary of a real but subtler effect that only shows up in the bottom fifth by baseline temperament. Now, the landing. Take these numbers off the American page and put them on Canadian soil in 2026 Canadian dollars. The 2010 US dollar 75,000 threshold is a 2010 American figure in an American cost of living context. Convert it forward for US consumer price inflation from 2010 to today, and it becomes roughly 106,000 US dollars in 2026 US dollars. Convert that at the current spot rate near 1 US dollar to 1 Canadian dollar and 37 cents. And you land near 145,000 Canadian dollars. But, one sentence only on this, Canadian prices and American prices are not identical basket for basket, and the honest purchasing power adjustment for Canadian consumers pulls that translated threshold down closer to 130,000 Canadian dollars in real Canadian buying power in 2026. Call it a Canadian range of 100,000 Canadian dollars to 145,000 Canadian dollars for the old plateau line. Do the same for Killingsworth's 100,000 US dollar marker and above. In today's Canadian dollars, his no plateau finding covers Canadian household incomes running from roughly 140,000 Canadian dollars upward, because his American upper reference was a 2019 era number that has also been eaten by inflation and pulled by the exchange rate. Here is what those Canadian numbers mean for your paycheck, based on the reconciled finding. If you are, in general, a reasonably content person, the 80% group, and you are earning below the 130,000 Canadian dollars to 145,000 Canadian dollars range in Canada, more money will still improve your day-to-day mood, and the improvement continues past that band. If you are in the group whose baseline mood is chronically low, the roughly bottom 20%, then above about 130,000 Canadian dollars in Canadian buying power, additional income mostly stops moving the emotional needle for you, and something other than more money is what your happiness responds to. And for everyone, the size of the raise that will feel meaningful depends on where you start, because the scale is doublings. Which means the honest read for someone weighing a higher paying, higher stress job looks like this. Going from a 60,000 Canadian dollar job to a 80,000 Canadian dollar job is only a 33% raise. On the doubling scale, it is a small step, and the emotional lift will be modest even before you subtract the stress. Going from a 60,000 Canadian dollar job to a 120,000 Canadian dollar job is a doubling. That is a step you will feel, provided the stress does not eat the whole gain. Going from a 150,000 Canadian dollar job to a 170,000 Canadian dollar job is only a 13% raise on the doubling scale, a small nudge that will be dwarfed by the difference in commute, sleep, and how much of the day belongs to your employer. This is why the dream promotion so often disappoints. The arithmetic of a 15% raise on top of a six-figure salary is a fraction of a doubling. One paragraph on the mechanisms, because you should know why the curve behaves this way. Psychologists point at three forces. Adaptation. You get used to your new income within months, and the raise becomes the baseline you compare tomorrow against. Social comparison. Your reference group moves up alongside you, so the neighbors who now earn what you earn set the new bar. Time poverty. High-income jobs quietly consume the discretionary hours that mood depends on, so the money buys nice things you have no time to enjoy. Together, those three forces do not create a hard plateau. Killingsworth's data ruled that out for most people, but they do explain why each successive raise feels smaller unless the raise is itself a doubling. The Canadian context. Statistics Canada's Canadian Social Survey has tracked self-reported life satisfaction across the country for years, most recently through 2023, and the picture matches the international pattern. Average life satisfaction in Canada sits around 6.7 on a scale of 0 to 10, with material hardship the single strongest downward pull, and social connection and health the strongest upward pulls at every income level. A life satisfaction score is a survey respondent rating their own overall life on that 0 to 10 ladder. Half of Canadians sit above it, half below. Which is another way of saying what the adversarial collaboration found. Money keeps helping, but only up to what money can actually buy, and it can never buy loneliness, poor health, or an unhappy baseline temperament away. The honest close. There is no salary at which money stops mattering. There is a salary above which most of what remains broken in your life is not fixable with a bigger check. And for most Canadians, that salary is much higher than the 2010 dinner party number suggested. For the bottom fifth of people by baseline temperament, there is a genuine flattening around the old threshold. And no chase of a bigger salary will change it. A different set of things will. For everyone else, the raise that matters is a doubling, not a nudge. And the price of the doubling is usually the hours it takes from the parts of life the raise cannot pay for. The two scientists shook hands on that in 2023, and it is the closest thing to a settled answer this question has ever had.